Hello, and welcome to another virtual happy hour hip historian tour. We are glad to have you join us this evening. My name is Brenda Holt, and I am the Associate State Director of Community Outreach and Advocacy for the Arizona State Office of AARP. We are the nation's largest nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to empowering people 50 and older to choose how they live as they age. With a nationwide presence of nearly 38 million members across the nation and over 900,000 right here in Arizona, we are working to strengthen communities and we advocate for what matters most to families, such as health security, financial stability, and personal fulfillment. In honor of November being National Caregiver Month, we are focusing on navigating long-term care options. We will also be addressing mental health issues and more. Please visit us at aarp.org/caregiving for tips, tools, and other resources. Thank you for joining us again. Please be safe and be well. Take it away, Marshall.
Folks, welcome to the show. Get ready to meet your host for the night, Arizona's very own hip historian himself, Marshall Shore.
Well, hello, good evening, everybody. I want to welcome you to our November 11th show, and we've got a whiz-bang of a show for you coming up this evening. Oh my gosh. So I know some of you are out there watching today. We have YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter. So all kinds of ways that you can interact with Arizona History Happy Hour. So thank you so much for being here. Now, I do want to say today is a special day. Now, it's not only the anniversary of when in 1873, there was completion of a telegraph line from Yuma to Prescott, which that must have been life-changing, be able to send fast messages, unlike today where everyone has a cell phone and you can immediately send a fast message. Would have been a very different time way back then. Now, also, it is November 11th, so it's Veterans Day. And this is a day when we honor all those who have served. So thank you so much. I didn't get a chance to get down to Post 1 today. Post 1 is at 7th Avenue in Grand. If you're ever down there and you see a really tall flag post, that is indeed Post 1. What I think is really cool is that building actually opened up. Well, it's been added to a lot since then, but originally opened its doors back in 1919, just a year after World War I ended. And that's why we celebrate Veterans Day on November 11th, commemorating the end of World War I. And you know, that building, it may not look special from the outside, but if you've ever been inside that building, oh my gosh. I mean, the social hall itself dates from the 30s and is really the walls of a 1890s house that was there that they just walled in, and the bar. And they've got some really cool stuff about to start happening that's going to be really community involved. So kind of excited about that. So I know they will be on as a guest at some point. So looking forward to that. Now, in case you haven't joined us before, you can expect a little bit of course, Arizona history, but we also do segments such as Little Arizona, talking about a small town in Arizona. We also have a little bit of music history, as well as some trivia with a very special guest. And we have started a new segment called From the Vault, highlighting things in museums across Arizona. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So if this is your first time watching, you might wonder, who is that man and why is he on my screen? Well, my name is Marshall Shore. I'm also known as the Hip Historian. Now, I got here about 22 years ago from Brooklyn, and I was originally working in this old Carnegie building, decided to trade that for a 1950s library in South Phoenix, where there was this rich oral tradition of the community. And so that's one of the things that really kind of got me going and doing what I'm doing, is really talking about different parts of Arizona and sharing stories of kind of that modern history of Arizona. Now, when we moved here, we promptly moved into a beautiful 1956 ranch. Now, originally, it was oh so many tones of beige. I'm happy to say now is a lovely two-tone of seafoam and cantaloupe. In fact, there's what my kitchen looks like today. All that buttercream yellow tile, the matching in-the-wall oven with no window. So you've got to be careful if you're baking something, because you don't want your cake to fall. Now, as soon as we got here, all I kept hearing about how there was no history here. But I knew that wasn't true, because every time I went for an adventure, I would come across so many amazing people, places, and stories. And then there's that post-war boom that I think in oh so many ways made the Arizona that we all know and love today. All those GIs either were stationed here, trained here, or passed through on the way to somewhere else. And after the war, they were moving here in huge numbers. Now, as the hip historian, that means I get to have fun with all kinds of Arizona history. Why, coming up this weekend, we are doing a walking haunted history tour of downtown Phoenix. So that's always a lot of fun. We do that monthly. We also are launching that afternoon, with help from the Phoenix Office of Arts and Culture. We are doing LGBTQ storytelling. That's going to be a virtual, that's going to be just a small group of folks sharing stories with each other. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Also, on November 18th, I'm going to be down in Casa Grande doing a program for the Arizona Humanities talking about Arizona music. So looking forward to that and getting down to Casa Grande. And I'm excited. Last night we did bingo for the first time on the rooftop of the Clarendon, for the first time in 2 years. And next month is my favorite month, because we do white elephant bingo. So if you want to come, you bring a wrap gift, and that becomes one of the prizes. So we have set that as December 14th. Hopefully I'll see some of you there. Now, some of you I see have already discovered there's a little chat off to one side. You can also reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram, or email as well. Because, you know, people provide some of the best stuff that I have. Give me those stories. That's part of the reason why I even do this, is to help share some of those stories. Now, speaking of sharing, I will ask you to share. If you're on Facebook, there's a little button underneath, and if you just click on that, people will get to see how much fun we're having with Arizona history. So first up, we have Little Arizona. Now, you know, I talk about spending time in New York, but I really grew up in the Midwest in a little tiny farm town of about 25 people. So I have a special affinity for small towns. And so I thought I would talk about a little town that is called San Manuel. It's a little over 3,500 people. It's down in Pinal County. And even though it's a mining town, it was established back in 1954. So it's a fairly new town. And you can see it's got some great views. It's part of the Arizona Trail, which goes from Mexico all the way up to Utah. And so some folks actually do that entire hike. These are some of the views from around San Manuel. But what makes San Manuel unique is it was built in 1953 by Del Webb, who you might know from the name Sun City, that town up in the Northwest Valley. So it was a mining town that was really built as a company town. And so the mine brought him in. And so he brought in another local architect to help design the homes. And so that would have been Ralph Haver. So Ralph Haver's homes here in the valley can get quite expensive. But, you know, if you go to San Manuel, you can wind up with a Haver home for a lot less than you can here in the valley. So you can go check and see. Maybe you'll want to move to San Manuel, get those views, and get a Haver house. And of course, it would not be a happy hour without a very special cocktail, and today is no different. So let's check in with Silent Bob and see what he is making. So we have tonight a canal cooler. So this was made over by PJ over at the Valley Ho. So we'll go through the ingredients as soon as now. I want you to watch because let's actually do it like this. Oh, wait a minute. So there's going to be some magic happening with this cocktail. Oh, it did work. Wow. Oh, and then you get a lovely two-tone there. All right. So you might be wondering, well, what is in that delicious looking canal cooler? Well, it's a little bit of mezcal, Narin, which Narin means eclipse of the moon. We got a little Grand Marnier, watermelon, because it's just kind of the end of the season, and prickly pear, because we indeed are right here in Arizona. It's also got a little bit of almond, some jalapeno, some lemonade, and some hibiscus, and a splash of ginger beer. So that is what we have in our canal cooler. And PJ makes the best darn cocktails. All right. So now we have an extremely special guest. I'm going to bring on my friend Oscar. Hey, Oscar. How are you? Oh, I think we lost your voice. Are you muted?
I'm back.
Ah, there we go.
Thank you for having me. I am a fan of this show. You have no clue.
Thank you so much. I am so happy we're able to do this tonight.
Yes, it's been on the works for a while, and I'm finally here.
Indeed. And I'm so happy. So, Oscar, for those folks out there that don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Oscar de Las Salas. If you see it spelled down here, and my name, a little complicated, it's 3 words. I'm originally from Colombia, from a port town in the north part of the country called Barranquilla. It's the same town where Shakira was born, where Sofia Vergara was born, and now another Barranquilla. Oh, also Nina Garcia
I was going to
from,
say, I was like, wait a minute, you forgot a fashionista.
of course, Nina Garcia. She's from Barranquilla as well. It's an industrial port, and it was basically where all the new industrials came into America during the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, and is basically, like I said, a port. So there's people from all over the world. So I had friends from India, from Italy, French people all over the world, because they came from Europe right after the First World War and Second World War. So I grew up in a little mini Brooklyn, if you would, something like a mini Manhattan. And that's where aviation started in South America. Avianca was one of, now that we're talking about history, it was one of the first airlines in South America, in the Americas actually, and it started in Barranquilla, Colombia. I studied architecture in Colombia, and then I moved to Spain, to Salamanca, the second oldest university in the world, to do a master's in interior architecture. And I did a series of internships through Europe before touching land in the States 23 years ago, trying to finish my thesis about Frank Lloyd Wright and American modernism. And I've been here since then, 23 years.
Wow. Well, and we're so happy you're here.
Thank you so much.
So now I know, so we've come up with, so we always play trivia on this show. And so what's unique about our trivia is the fact that we go through the questions and the answers, which are all multiple choice. So that way, even if you don't know the answer, all you got to kind of do is throw a dart and you're likely going to hit it.
Oh.
As well as we'll take a little bit of an Arizona music history break, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about those answers.
Fantastic.
So it's a fun way to just learn a lot about Arizona.
Hmm.
So, all right. So now you can keep track of, some folks keep track of their trivia in the chat. Some do it on a pad and paper. I had one friend who sent me, he was writing on his leg with a marker. You can do it however you would like. No guilt, no shame here. We're just happy you're here, gonna learn.
Fantastic. I'll take a pen and a notepad.
Ah, all right. So our first question is, the first historical building that Oscar visited in the Valley was designed by A. Frank Lloyd Wright, B. Wenceslas Sarmiento, C. Will Bruder, or D. Ralph Paracek. So, which building did Oscar visit first here in the Valley?
Should I answer or just
No,
should we
actually,
wait?
we're gonna wait till we get to the end. So
Perfect.
then you get to tell the whole story about why you went there.
Perfect.
All right. So, question 2. What modern building in Phoenix was used to film What Planet Are You From? Was it A. Taliesin West, B. the Maria Goretti Chapel, C. Phoenix Financial Center, or D. the Dial Building? All right. Well, you're trying to figure out, and I think that was a 2000. It was like an early 2000s movie, so
That's
it's not
correct.
that old. So, well, I guess it is now, but I guess we're not that old. So no, it's not an old movie. Never mind. All right. Question 3. Name the multi-day Phoenix art event that happens in the spring. Is it A, Art Festival, B, First Friday, C, Art Detour, or D, Art Attack? What is the name of a multi-day art festival that happens in the springtime right here in Phoenix? All right. Question 4. What is the name of the public art piece at Arizona Falls in Herberger Park? Is it A, Falling Water, B, Drip Drop, C, Canal Convergence, or D, Waterworks? So what is the name of that spectacular art piece at Arizona Falls? All right. Here we are at the halfway point. And so, where did Oscar attend the naturalization ceremony to become a citizen back in 2010? Indeed, congratulations. Was that A, the historic state capitol, B, the Sandra Day O'Connor Courthouse, C, Phoenix City Hall, or D, the Calvin Good Building? So, which one of those buildings did Oscar attend the naturalization ceremony in? All right. What Valley Hotel did Telemundo film a 2013 talk show in? Was it A, the San Carlos, B, the San Marcos, C, Hotel Valley Ho, or D, Taliesin West? What Valley Hotel did Telemundo film a TV show in back in 2013? All right. Question 7. What Valley Art Museum was designed by Will Bruder? Was it A, the Mesa Contemporary Art Museum, B, the West Valley Art Museum, C, Scottsdale Museum of Contemporary Art, or D, the ASU Art Museum? So which one of those buildings was designed by Will Bruder? All right. Question 8. Oscar has emceed which events? A, Noche en Blanco, B, Brave Wings Fashion Show, C, the Miss Arizona Latina USA pageant, or D, all of the above? All right. Question 9. What has Oscar not designed? A, gowns, B, buildings, C, interiors, or D, eyewear? Which one of those has Oscar not designed yet, I should add?
There you go.
All right. And our last question for this round of trivia: what multi day art event is currently happening right now in Scottsdale? Is it A, Bridges of Maricopa County, B, Canal Convergence, C, Thursday Art Walk, or D, Picnic with a Fish? All right. So, which one of those is an art festival going on right now in Scottsdale? Well, while you are putting your signature down on your very last guess for all those questions, we're going to take a quick Arizona music break. And so, I thought since, I finally got to the Clarendon last night, it was so nice to finally be back on the rooftop of the Clarendon, being able to share and play some bingo. I thought we'd talk about. I used to work at the Clarendon, and I was at the front desk checking some folks out one day and made a comment on this guy's girlfriend's outfit. It was also this great 50s kind of a business power suit for women from the 50s. It was amazing. And it turned out to be Brian from who has Mr. Ho's Orchestratica.
Yes,
And
amazing, amazing band.
oh my gosh, they are so much fun. And
Yep.
so we started just chatting, and he actually has a full orchestra that he's traveling with.
Mm.
As well as he's got a quartet that does some other things as well. He's got a variety of albums, and we're going to get a listen to just a little bit of some of his music so you're going to get a taste of what Mr. Ho's Orchestratica sounds like.
I'm up for it.
Anytime you get a vibraphone involved, it's going to be a good day. So, all right. So, who's ready for some answers? I hope you all out there are ready because I think, are you ready, Oscar?
Yes, I am. Hit it.
All right. Very good. So, the first historical building that you visited here in the Valley was designed by.
Frank Lloyd Wright.
Oh my gosh, I'm shocked that that was the first building, especially since that was what you had done study on prior to even getting here.
That's right. So living abroad and living away from the United States when I was in architecture school, you see all these beautiful buildings, all this beautiful photography of the buildings that Frank Lloyd Wright designed. And from the eyes of Europe, he was the first modernist of the American modern era. So when it came to the point that I needed to write my thesis, I talked to my dean and I said, I want to talk about my thesis about American modernism because that was the foundation for the American life, the Americana that we know today. So he said, absolutely yes. So I wanted to actually go to Oak Park and Taliesin east, let's say, up north, but I didn't know anyone in Illinois. So I was just like, well, where do I go? In Chicago, basically. That's what I wanted to go, but who was my boss lived here in Phoenix. So I sent him a quick note. My boss prior, when I graduated as an architect, this is my second master's in interior architecture. So I talked to my dean and I said, I want to go to the Wild Wild West. Happened to know that Taliesin West was very close to Phoenix. So my boss called me and he said, why don't you come here and then spend 6 months or whatever time you need and then write your thesis?
Oh.
So I flew directly. I was at that time living in Milan. I was doing internships. So I flew from Milan, stopped in Madrid, picked up my books, and I landed here in 1998, not knowing that from Phoenix to Taliesin back then in a bus was a 2.5 hour trip. But I endured those trips back and forth to Taliesin, and I finished my thesis a year and a half after because someone offered me a job and I decided to take the job And then it went on and on and on. And then my boss at the time, he said, you know what, we want to sponsor your visa. Why don't you stay? We have another position for you.
Oh.
And then they sponsored my visa. I wanted to go back to Spain, so I went back to Spain, filed my thesis, and then came back to the States. And I've been here since then.
Wow. So you came because of Frank Lloyd Wright.
Correct. That's exactly that building, Taliesin, basically brought me into America. I knew some cities in the United States, like I knew Miami, Orlando, and some other cities in the South, but I never ventured into the west of the country. And yeah, Frank Lloyd Wright and Taliesin West basically brought me to Arizona.
Wow.
Yep.
And those and that but I can and when I first moved here as well, didn't have a car, so was taking the bus.
It
And
was miserable, right?
well, and it's so funny because last night I met a young man who was like, I just sold my car and I'm going carless.
Oh
And
my
I
God.
can remember when we first were doing that. I mean, I just came here
Yeah,
just after you did. People were like,
yeah.
"Hey, tell people how you get around. How do you how you get around?" I'm like, "I get around on a bus." And they were
Crazy.
just, but I loved getting around on the bus. I mean,
I mean, in a perspective, if I had back then what we have today, like Lyft or Uber or the light rail or a better system, a bus system like we have today, or even the cable car that just opened in Tempe, I think I would. You can
right,
easily go around or have live within a district. I would say you can live in
right.
downtown Tempe or Old Town Scottsdale or now Roosevelt District in Phoenix, but and those are the like tiny little districts, and then yeah, to go from one to another, from here to Scottsdale, it will be a little cumbersome, but you have Lyft, you have Uber, and other ways to get around. But I
Right.
we could you could do it nowadays, but when you and I had to do it, it was very difficult.
Well, and yeah, and it's so funny that now it's like transit oriented development is a thing. So when they're like planning new developments and things, really looking at where does it fall within transit? How are we going to get to and from where they're going? So
Mhm.
even how people we've thought about how do we go places has
There's one
changed since.
this one development in Tempe. I should give him a little plug. The name is Cool de Sac, or
Yes. Yo,
yeah,
please do.
cul-de-sac. So cul-de-sac is a little development in Tempe, and there are tiny homes, and everything is walkable, and there are bike lanes, and you have basically is all a walking district. You will have like your little store in the corner, like the little bodega that you have in New York. Your dry cleaner is within the same area. Your little grocery store, everything is with the same area. So you have basically you need no car to live in the district, which I think is fantastic. And we all talk about sustainability these days. We all
Right.
talk about carbon zero footprint and the future of just electric vehicles and mass transportation. So I think we are heading on that direction, but it will be years before then. But we are on our way.
Right. I mean, at least we're thinking about things in a little bit in advance, which is great.
Correct.
All right. So our next question. What modern building in Phoenix was used to film What Planet Are You From?
The Phoenix Financial Center.
Indeed, that famous that a lot of people call it the punch card building.
Yeah, because exactly looks like that. It was
Right.
one of the first buildings that I pictured, or I took pictures with my camera back then. I had a Polaroid camera, and then I have it here somewhere. That is the first Polaroid. It looks very dated, very of the time. And then that was one of the first international style architecture buildings in Phoenix, and it was built in 1960, designed in 1963. And for what I understand, Oscar Niemeyer was part of the commission of the building, and there were two towers.
Oh,
There were two towers next, so only one got built,
right.
and then the one that got built 10 stories, and then they years later they finished the one that we have today. That's why there is a break in between, because they build the other stories later on, and it's actually 10 stories. That's how the first one with 10 stories, a break, and then I think it's 19 stories high, and it's a beautiful setting. And I had some pictures by Chris Loomis that you show previously a local photographer friend of mine,
Hmm.
very good friend of mine that I work with, and then we had some. It was basically the set of a photo shoot with Chris, and it was the set for "What Planet Are You From?"
Starring Gary Shandling, who is from Tucson. So
Oh, I didn't know that part.
yeah, so I was wondering. I was like, oh, I wonder if that's how they wound up here. Was because he was like, oh, I don't have
Oh,
to go all the way to LA to be in the movie. What if you just did it here? And so,
why not? That's and it's beautiful and it's still a beautiful place.
oh, it's such a beautiful building.
Yes.
And I'm so glad because I know like in one of the rotunds, I think is it Shipley Bullfinch is there.
Yep, correct. Shepley
So
Bulfinch, the architectural office and design office is there, and I don't know what is the other building who's the listening currently, but back then was a piano store, remember? And it was beautiful, and it has an underground, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of things that we can talk about the building, but it's one of the most beautiful structures in Phoenix for sure.
I would agree with you there. All right. Name the multi-day Phoenix Art Festival that happens in the spring. And that would be
Art.
Art Detour.
An RD tour is just a staple now in Phoenix. I think it started a year before I arrived, or no, it started in. I can't remember those pictures that you show. They're from 1999. It was a year after I arrived. It was the spring after I arrived, and I found just walking around in the New Times, I found that there was an art installations around town. So back then, when with my camera in hand, I just went to each one of the installations, and I thought it was fantastic. It was just such a good expression of art, public art by artists. I don't know if they're commissioned or they're just expressions of art. I'm not sure. But I think those art tour still exists and still on, and I think Katrina Keller from ArtLink
Right.
is who coordinates the entire RD Tour week. And do not miss it. That's every spring, and you can find it throughout the city.
Yeah, and I really and last year I know they were doing a lot of art also in just local businesses. So it kind of really kind of expanded from just being these big like some of the photos you sent me also had like Mamie Krantz when she did that big bale
Yes.
that was in the ice house that was spectacular.
Yeah,
So
there's great expressions and installations of art, and from there we get to know upcoming artists and established artists and their point of view about whatever they're thinking in the moment.
yeah, I mean the ice house has been kind of the art scene for gosh, going on 30 years.
Yeah, say hello to Helen Hesnesnes, one of my first friends when I came to town.
Indeed. All right. What is the name of the public art piece at Arizona Falls in Herberger Park?
Waterworks.
Waterworks, and it's so fantastic. Day or night, it's a pleasure to go hang out there and just see. And I've seen people taking wedding photos here,
Hmm.
all kinds of things. So it's really
Yeah,
spectacular.
yeah. This was one of the first projects that I worked on with the City of Phoenix Parks and Recreation and the City Arts Commission. What happened was that in 2003, I was working with Architectural Alliance, the company that I just told you. They supported my process to become an American citizen and give me the visa and all that stuff. So we got this commission of doing the construction administration for this particular project. So I got to work side by side with Lau Scherer and Max Harris, two great artists of contemporary art around the world. And then they basically were hired to create Arizona Falls. Basically, the concept behind that exchange of elevation that creates that fall. So they created these troughs around that just basically spill water, like cascades, and the structure with the little swoop in the top, and a bridge that connects to Arcadia. So not many people know that that's one of the biggest elevation changes through the canal. And by the way, the canal is the canal. We have to celebrate water in Arizona and our canals because that's the way we supply water to the entire valley. And the Aborigines from Arizona were able to create these canals for irrigation, which is what nowadays we live around these canals.
Right.
So this piece of art was built in that change of elevation. And one quick thing, during summertime, the platform that was the top of it, it was concrete because it was a turbine inside to create electricity. Every time you have change of elevation and water falling, you have the opportunity to create
Oh.
electricity. So there's a turbine that supplies still up to today power to the entire
Oh,
area.
I never knew
So
it was functional. I just thought it
it's
was decorative.
so that you see there's a tower, and the tower has
Right.
just like a little see-through panels, so that moves as the turbine moves, so you know the power is being
Oh.
generated, and that exchange of elevation and water spilling create that moisture. So when it's summertime, that is cooler than the rest of the area. So people around the district and around the area used to host dance parties at really late at night, and that top concrete is called the dance floor. So I have much information. Alberto Rios um, wrote a poem, and the poem is written on top of that surface, that concrete surface. It's a beautiful piece of art. If you have an opportunity anytime, stop at the Herberger Park and read about Arizona Falls.
Yeah, I mean, and it's also historic because I mean, because of
Correct.
that elevation change, it was this place where we would go hang out for to picnic for just because it was had like you were
Fishing.
saying,
Hmm.
there was that water, and so it was always cooler than around the area. So it's been a
Correct.
historical place just to go hang out and be chill. And now you can do that today and make electricity.
Yep, that's right.
Very cool. All right. So, where did Oscar attend the naturalization ceremony back in 2010?
At the Sandra Day O'Connor Courthouse in
Oh, what a
downtown.
beautiful building.
Yeah, this is one of the most beautiful buildings designed by Richard Meyer. Richard Meyer is a very well-known architect of the modern era in the States, and you will recognize his buildings because they're mostly white and they are very geometric. Like the geometry of the building works in sync. It's like perfection. And then this building itself, the like the patio, let's say, the covered plaza, uh, it was designed to work with some sort of like cooling system similar to the air coolers, that the hot air will come through and then will generate cooling system inside the plaza and then live, but it never worked, so they had to basically air conditioning the whole thing. So that circular kind of like a tubular space that you see right behind
Oh,
me,
okay. So, right there behind you.
right
Okay.
behind me, exactly, that's exactly where I took my oath, right there in amongst all those people. There I am taking my oath. There were people from, I think, 23 countries
Oh, I didn't
that
realize
day.
you were actually inside the rotund.
Yep.
Wow. How cool is that?
And that lights up at night. That's what you see, that it lights up at night. And then it's so beautifully designed because it has like three levels, as you see. So my husband Gary took the picture from right above, that's the picture from right above, into the crowd. And it has this presence that is luminescence because of the glass. So it's just it's not how, I don't know how to describe it. If you're ever there, you will feel like empowered and the power of the law, let's say. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful feel.
Indeed, it is. All right. Question 6. What Valley Hotel did Telemundo film a 2013 talk show in? Ah,
One of my favorites.
I was going to say, I'm like, oh, one of my favorites as well.
Yeah, the Valley Ho Hotel. Is Valley Ho Scottsdale, right? The zip code is
Yes.
in Scottsdale.
Yeah,
So
it's just kind of like right over the border.
right over the border of Scottsdale. So what happened was a good friend of mine had a little talk show. She was the very beginning of her talk show, and then she was working with Telemundo, and she said, "Hey, I need you to help me with this show. Why don't you come and become my co-host? Maybe I interview you and so on and so forth." So I told her, "You need to showcase Arizona and Arizona at its best." And then so I call a friend of mine in the Valley Ho, and they say, "Oh yeah, just come over. Let's just plan ahead, and then let's have you guys here so you can come here every other weekend." So for several weekends, we tape a talk show in Espanol from the Valley House. So this picture that you just show was from the lobby. So we did the lobby, the rooftop, one of the
Oh,
suites,
nice.
all the green areas. So it is a beautiful setting for TV for sure. I don't know if Valley Ho ever was on a movie. Do you know if anything have
I
been taped
don't
in
think it's
movie?
ever been part of a movie.
Hmm.
I mean, but it's a great place to go hang out.
A fantastic place. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, you've got Cafe Zuzu there.
Mm.
So they also make good cocktails, as I can attest to.
I have to go for one. PJ, you said that's the name of the bartender.
Indeed.
I'll have to go and talk to PJ about a canal drink,
A canal cooler.
canal
E-
cooler.
exactly. All right. So, Watt Valley Art Museum was designed by Will Bruder.
The Scottsdale Museum of Contemporary Art, or
There
SMOCA,
we
as
go.
we all know it.
Indeed.
So my story with SMOCA, it was a year after I arrived, once again looking for art around town. I had to take the bus, as I mentioned, to go to Taliesin West. So the exchange of buses was in Scottsdale, is in Old Town. So once again, the new times at hand, I found out about Smoka and about contemporary art. I was like, oh my God, that's fantastic. And they just had opened Smoka. So I went and visited the museum and I loved it. So I sent a note, I believe that back then, a like type mail, like handwritten mail to Smoka to see if I was able to volunteer or contribute somehow. And then I became part of not the docent portion, but I was one of the guides for a while, and I loved it. And I became part of the team. Uh, Actually, I became part of the board 15 years ago. So I've been in the board of Smoka for
Wow.
15 years. Yep, it's one of the most beautiful museums in town.
Well, and and Will Bruder also did a handful of libraries. So I've worked in Will Bruder's buildings before.
Oh, yes,
So
of
yeah,
course. He's one of the most prolific architects and public works in Phoenix, for sure. I think throughout Arizona. I
yeah,
think they move out of town, he and his wife, but they leave a legacy here. I think they still
they
have
do.
some projects in town. But Smoka was, before being a museum, it was a movie theater. I don't know if you know the story about
Oh
that.
no, I never knew that.
Yeah, that was a movie theater before, and it had two big screening areas, or two screening rooms. And then they basically stripped down the whole movie theater, and they left some of the walls. So if you're ever around Smoka, let me know, because there's a great story around it. And the reason that is covered like in that tin material, galvanized steel around it, there is a reason why as well for all that. So yes.
Oh, okay. So that picture, right? Okay.
Right, the one that you see that right above us, that's the galvanized steel that is part of the facade of the museum. And inside the museum, all the structures is open because there were no funds basically to have beautiful white stucco ceilings, or white plaster ceilings. So they were left open, and it would just became part of the museum.
Wow.
Hmm.
There you go. There's always more to the story.
Yeah, there's always more to the
All
story.
right. So, Oscar, what events have you emceed?
Oh my God. Oh, like too many to tell you the truth. Way too many. So this is funny because I all of a sudden one day I show up and then I'm emceeing something, and everyone's like, "What? Oscar is doing what?" The reason is very simple. When I moved here, I didn't have family or friends. It was just myself. So I moved here supposed to be here just for 6 months, like I mentioned. It was only one person. It was my anchor here, who was my boss. 6 months into it, he got an offer in Texas for a big project. He was a construction manager. So he and his wife moved to Texas. I'm here working in this little office, and I didn't have much of a
Oh,
life. So it was very difficult to create network for me, and very, very difficult. So I started to frequent or go to places that I wanted to be part of: museums, fashion shows, anything that was culture. I was there at my scale back then. So one one of these meetings, someone said, let's put together a fundraiser. We need to have an MC. We need to have someone to host this. And then it's like, will you do it? No, I won't do it. Will you do it? No, I won't do it. So I said, guys, whatever. I've been in front of TV. I've been in catwalks around the world. I'll do it. So I raised my hand and I did. Back then was what I can't remember. It was a fashion show in Old Town. And that prompted a series of invitations to start hosting things. And I've hosted events for more, which the biggest one would be like what, 3,000 people, maybe more. It was it's scary at the beginning, but I do it from the bottom of my heart for free to only the nonprofits that I am inclined to help, because these occasions, this event, they need someone who's able to tell the story, and I do it from my heart. And I know about the nonprofit. Or if I don't, then I learn about them. I become part of them, and I help to raise funds.
indeed. Yeah. No, I've even seen a bunch of events and kind of that same thing. It's like events that places,
Right?
organizations, I really appreciate what they do.
Correct. Correct.
So, all right. So, Oscar, what have you not designed to date? Because we know
I've
you've done gowns,
Yeah, yeah.
buildings, and interiors.
Yeah, and eyewear. Actually, I designed a pair of eyewear for a company from Italy, and this was pre-COVID, and it was they were called the Oscar, the Oscars, and basically they were very similar to my glasses, black and kind of like chunky or big, and the reason didn't took off is because didn't take off is because of the pandemic, but I decided about 15 years ago when I met Gary, and I decided to stay in Arizona, that I will put all my talents to work, whatever was needed, whenever I was needed. I mean, given the times and my time, my personal time, I will make my personal time for my community. So that's the reason a lot of people see me out and about all the time, or they see me contributing to so many nonprofits, is because I made a pledge to say thank you to this community that received me with open arms. Someone who was a stranger with no family, no network, no, I mean, no funds. I was just a very simple student that came here to write a thesis, and they're supposed to leave, and I decided to stay, became part of this town, and many people here became my family, and a lot of them became my community and my network, and I've supported them as well. They have supported me in the past through good and bad. So as much as I'm able, I will contribute, given my personal responsibilities here at home and at work, but I made a pledge to help as much as I could, and I'm continuing to doing so. So
Mhm.
that's the reason I do what I do.
Indeed. All right. And then our last question is, what multi day art event is currently happening right now in Scottsdale?
And it's called
Canal
Canal
Convergence.
Convergence.
Oh my gosh. And it is so much fun. I mean, they have hit it out of the park this year. It's amazing.
Yeah, so then this was years past. This is part of Scottsdale Arts wing. So Scottsdale Arts is the company, the nonprofit that basic, nonprofit that helps to um, how to say this, master, let's say, let's put it like that, or holds the art for the city of Scottsdale. The city of Scottsdale has this nonprofit, this company, this is a nonprofit that helps the city of Scottsdale to maintain, care for, and contribute to the world of arts in Scottsdale. So Canal Convergence is one of the four. Is part of Scottsdale Public Art, one of the four wings of Scottsdale Arts. Scottsdale Arts has a Scottsdale Arts and Learning. I think it's called Sally. Can't remember the other one. Um, the Museum for Contemporary Art, and then the Center for the Performing Arts, and Canal Convergence. So Canal Convergence is supposed to be every spring, but they pass it on to this time of year because it was needed and other things that they're going to do programming wise. But it's 10 days, or no, I'm sorry, 15 days, 14 days now, of expressions of art right on the canal at the waterfront in Old Town Scottsdale. So years ago, like I said, 14 years ago, I think it was, the director of Scottsdale Public Art decided to create an event right on the canal to celebrate water and have commissions by local or international artists to celebrate water. And then now the Canal Convergence is celebration of water, art, and light. And then this year, there are 12 artists invited. They were invited for commissions right on the canal. And it's incredible. And along those expressions of art, there are programs. So there are concerts, there's stuff for the kids to do at nighttime. It's only nighttime when you can go and see it during the daytime, but nighttime is where everything happens because it's light. So it needs to be dark. It goes from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Is right in front of the Fashion Square Mall for a better location if you don't know where the waterfront is. And I urge you to go because they're incredible pieces of art and they are interactive this year. A lot of
Oh my
technology
gosh, there's
attached to it.
there's that one that looks like cattails that are like marshmallow cubes, and there's a QR code on them. And if you
Yeah,
take a photo of that, you can then control that group of lights, which was so much fun to be able to be a part of that.
yeah, and it has music and it has light. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of
Yeah.
fun.
I mean, they've got some great it's like on Saturday, Joe Willie Smith, who's is doing a workshop. And so you get to make an instrument with him.
Yep.
I can't make it. And I'm so disappointed because I would love to take that workshop from him and make a fun instrument like he plays all over town.
Yeah, it's only until, I believe it's only until this Sunday, November 14th, which is
Yeah. So it's,
closing night, from
yeah.
6 to 9. On Sunday it's only from 6 to 9. The rest of the nights is from 6 to 10.
And then there's also music. It's like there's a stage. And so I know
Hmm.
my friend
Correct.
Preston and his wife are going to be playing on that stage on Sunday. And then I think the closing band is like gets from Sun Punchers. You have John Rawhouse, who
Yep.
is an amazing guitarist. So I'm kind of like, okay, so I'm going to go spend some time there on Sunday. But it's
Very
so much
fun.
fun.
Yeah, it's very fun. It happens. It's supposed to happen every spring, but they move it forward because they're going to have something else in spring. Actually, people are requesting to have it in spring again, to have it in spring and to have it in fall when the weather is nice. So they
Oh,
are working on it. I don't know what will be the last say,
okay.
but let's enjoy it right now because Canal Convergence is happening right now.
And it's spectacular. So, I mean, and it's absolutely free to just go wander and play.
Yeah, a lot of technology attached to it this year. There is one installation called "Say What You Will" from a group from Boston, and then you basically they have kind of like a cubicle, and it has a microphone, and then you say whatever you want to say, and what the technology helps to interpret whatever you're saying into color and light, and it leads these cells that are on top of the canal. It is quite wonderful. I mean, I urge you to go. It's
Oh my
incredible.
gosh. And then there's doors.
Yeah. Oh, the
Oh,
doors.
the
Yes.
doors where, yeah. So there's these two doors, and
Yeah.
you open it up, and it's a random group of images every time. So it's like you could be on top of a waterfall, you might be on another planet. Every
Very
time you
cool.
answer the door, who knows who's there?
It's very Doctor Who. Don't you think it's like that? It's very
Very
Doctor Who.
much so. But it's so much fun to watch kids. So a friend and I, we sat there for like half an hour and just watched kids
Yep.
because they're just amazed that every time they open it up, there's like a whole new scene.
Yeah, it is a computer generated program, and then I don't know if it has something to do with your energy or whatever is it, but every time you open it, it's just something like you relate to. I don't
Right.
know what is the technology, but it's pretty cool. So, and I love it because that's the mix between art and technology is
Well,
where
oh, and then
where
there's the
the
whole
both blend.
Walter project, the lily pads.
Yes. So correct. So
Oh my gosh.
Walter Productions created these, like, yeah, the lilies or lotuses that they are in the middle of the canal, and they have fire, and they are synchronized with music, and they have like three shows. I think every 45 minutes there is a
Yeah.
show, different music, and the fire this year has multicolors. They had the same
Which was
thing years ago.
shocking to see the multicolored flames. I was like, oh! I mean, I just saw the orange and all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, that's not orange any longer.
Very, very cool.
Yeah,
Completely fantastic. I urge everyone to go and see it.
I completely agree. So now we always end with this is ask people how they did. And so I mean, Sarah said she got 8 out of 10 right, but it's what she learned. And that's what I always say is it's not what you know coming in, but it's all that you now know as we get ready to say goodbye. So, Oscar, thank you so much for coming on and sharing some of your passions with us
Thank
as we
you.
get a chance to learn about you and some things we can do this weekend because there's
That's
still
right.
time to make it out there.
That's right. It's still time. It closes on Sunday.
Indeed, at 9 o'clock. So you've got some time to get out there and still experience it. So very good. So, Oscar, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your night.
Thank you so much, Marshall. It was so much fun. I'm a fan. I'm a fan. Number one.
Thank you.
See you soon.
All right. All right. So now if you'll see why I said you should share, because you're not going to get some of this stuff anywhere else other than right here on Arizona History Happy Hour. So thank you so much for hanging out with us. We get a chance to explore. Now we get to come on to From the Vault, getting to explore museums across Arizona and things that you might not know that they have or that you've seen, but you don't know what's there. So the Phoenix Art Museum. So as you're wandering around the Phoenix Art Museum, you might stumble across this piece by Jean-Léon Gérôme and Policia Versa. And so this is a painting from 1872. And so there was a director at one point whose name is Ridley Scott. And he was looking at this painting, and supposedly from just this little painting, he decided to create the Gladiator movie. And so that one painting was the inspiration for it. And you can see it on the wall of the Phoenix Art Museum. I was just there the other day, and there it is. So, all right. So coming up next week, we actually are going to be down in Casa Grande with the museum. Since I'm going to be there in the day, I'm like, let's just stick around and let's talk about the museum afterwards, as well as some cool stuff about Casa Grande. So that's going to be a fun show, and hopefully encourage y'all to kind of maybe make a road trip and hang out in Casa Grande. So remember, if you have any stories, you'd like to share something, please reach out and enjoy the fun. So as we get ready to say goodnight, I'm actually going to play the clip that we won the Emmy for. Oh gosh, I don't even know. Did I even mention that? So, I've been mentioning for a while that it's like, we got a Emmy nomination for a project I did with Cronkite Journalism. Well, over the weekend, we found out that the project actually won the Emmy. So we're going to get a chance to take a look at that award-winning piece. So everyone, enjoy and have a grace of your night, and I will see you here next week at 7 o'clock.
Imagine the way Arizona looked in the early 1900s. The streets, the people, with stories beyond the documented black and white.
People kept saying there was no history here.
But Marshall Shores sees history in color.
I'm known as Arizona's hip historian.
Also known as a local celebrity.
So I want to welcome you to Arizona History Happy Hour.
One of Marshall's friends, Erica Keppler, watched his audience skyrocket and said it's for a good reason.
He doesn't simply study history, he's actually trying to make a significant mark in it.
And Marshall made his footprint in history at Greenwood Cemetery in Phoenix. a lawn that celebrates the people who defined Arizona.
You can tell a lot about a city by going and visiting its cemetery and seeing its history.
To Marshall, each stone in Greenwood Cemetery represents a life with a story to share. But in the case of Nikolai de Raylan, it was the absence of a headstone that made it so significant.
It's a really amazing story.
Nikolai de Raylan visited Arizona to treat his tuberculosis.
It didn't go so well for him. He wound up passing away a few months later.
He left behind mounds of wealth and his beloved wife, Anna.
As they're ready for burial, they discovered that Nikolai was a woman. And so when they buried him here in Greenwood in 1906, they actually buried him in a dress and without a headstone.
Erica, who is also the founder of Arizona Trans Alliance, says his story is remarkable.
It really does say here's a person who managed to live a life with a tremendous secret that would have undoubtedly destroyed his life.
Nikolai had enough money to afford a traditional burial, but Marshall explained that his unmarked grave was a sign of disrespect.
Without a headstone, he was erased from time.
Then came an idea.
When I found out that we had a gender pioneer right here in Arizona from 1906, I started working with the local community to raise funds to get him a headstone.
It was really through his invitation I became a part of it.
They capitalized efforts through social media and word of mouth.
Going to bars and people giving money here, giving money there.
In 2 years, they raised over $3,000, but the question remained, what should it say?
It was my opinion that what we put on the headstone shouldn't be outing, should not out him as trans.
My friend Erica came up with this quote and I was like, oh my God, that is perfect.
A quote that speaks truth to Nikolai and the entire transgender community.
To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment.
Now the headstone stands among the masses, securing Nikolai's spot in Arizona's LGBTQ history.
So that's one of the things I try to give those marginalized communities a voice.
A contribution that also writes Marshall into Arizona's story. In Phoenix, Caitlin Keenahan, Cronkite News.